Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So today I want to talk about cell-cultured meat, also known as lab-grown meat, Franken meat, mystery meat, what else could we call it, synthetic meat, and its implications for the future of the human species. So lab-grown meat has already received approval. In fact, it meets certain criteria that it actually doesn't need approval from the FDA. They just need to oversee and regulate it. That is, there's no legislation in particular required for lab-grown meat to necessarily be sold. Right now, it's a little too expensive to manufacture, so it's not very profitable, but more than likely the price of that is going to come down immensely in the coming years. In fact, there is a company in California which claims that they're going to be selling it by the end of the year. So what does this all mean for homesteaders, survivalists, preppers, and just people in general? Now, I don't want to get all conspiratorial in this video because on the one hand, I think this is just a next step in evolution. I think in the future, everything is going to be 3D printed cell by cell. If you want something, you're going to go up to the machine, you're going to press a button, and it's going to automatically engineer that for you. If we make it that far, which, as I've discussed on this channel numerous times before, is not very likely in light of the current living arrangement that we have on this planet. But everything is going to be simulated in the future. You want a chicken, it's not going to be a real chicken, it's going to be a simulated chicken. You want sex, it's not going to be real sex, it's going to be simulated sex. You want friendship, the same thing. You're going to be friends with artificial intelligence, and everybody won't drift too far from their little cubicles or hovels in the massive sky rises, because going outside is just going to be too dangerous. There's going to be too many pathogens. Everybody's going to have a decontamination chamber before they enter their home, and everybody's just going to live inside, alienated from everybody else, working from home if there even is any work, living off their universal basic income, and probably selling off their neural capacity to quantum physicists, because in the future they're probably going to be able to find a way to store information in your cells or in your brain cells or something like that. And you're just going to rent out your brain space, if you will, to the universal hive mind supercomputer or something like that. Who knows? That's one possible dystopian future. So on the one hand, I see this as the natural trajectory. I don't think there's escaping this cultured meat thing. I think right now, of course, it's very bare bones. In its pure form, it looks like a ground beef type concoction. So this is not something where you can go and grow a chicken breast and it's going to have all the textures and everything like that. Eventually, of course, they're going to find a way to mold it into something like that. But this should not really come as a shocker to everybody. I mean, we've been eating mechanically separated mystery sludge meat for the last many decades. So it's not as if this is really something new. Now they're promoting this as being a cleaner alternative, more environmentally friendly. Obviously you're not going to need factory farms, so it's going to minimize animal suffering. All things that I'm for. But here's the problem, and it's always been my problem with the advancement of technology and the lagging behind advancement of ethics and morality, is that we are being so far removed from the land that our ability to survive on our own devices is becoming increasingly more limited. For instance, now that they've basically raked 90% of the world's biodiversity for plants and agriculture and stuffed them into the seed vault and replaced it all with a handful of strains of genetically modified stuff, it becomes less and less feasible for a person to have their own off-grid homestead, especially in light of increasing regulation, which favors corporate America over the small producer. So as this lab-grown cultured meat, or whatever you want to call it, becomes the norm, people are just going to forget about, the food of old. And in fact, what they're probably going to do is run campaigns to make us repulsed by the idea of eating animals in the first place. That is the future. That's what's going to happen, is that eating animals is going to be vilified and demonized through a very long-winded propaganda-like campaign to convince us that the act of eating meat is bad and it's unnatural and it's immoral. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with factory farming. I think factory farming is disgusting, and I think that the way animals are treated in those factories, I think we as human beings probably do deserve what we have coming to us, the way that we've treated just the animals. But that said, the act of eating real meat should not be vilified per se. How the meat is grown and processed, absolutely. Now, one of the potential benefits of something like this for survivalists is that once this technology becomes mainstream, there may well be the possibility of doing it within your own home. They could potentially at some point have kits that you could make your own. So there's a potential for this to be an asset. And after all, it probably couldn't be that much worse than spam when you think about it. Basically, this is going to be a way for you to create your own spam in your bunker. Now, right now, they can't even get it to a price point which is lucrative for the market. So it's likely that homebrew kits aren't going to be a possibility for some time. But it's likely that once the technology becomes more ubiquitous, it's going to be like making your own yogurt out of milk and yogurt cultures. Now, it's going to take a while for people to embrace this, primarily because you have the meat company, which is going to be in competition with all of these startups. But there's already meat companies who are starting to buy stock in these companies. So in the same way that the internet is edging out TV and all of the big mainstream media agencies are starting to migrate over to the internet, and the same way that fossil fuel companies are starting to migrate over to electric cars, they're all going to migrate over eventually, and it's how it's going to be sold to the public. There's probably going to be a scarcity factor with normal meat, and that is going to lead to this kind of meat being cheaper and more cost effective, and there'll be numerous campaigns run which slowly chip away at people's romanticized notions about eating live real meat, and it's all going to be replaced. Now, like I said, if we look at this objectively, eating lab-grown meat in itself for sustenance, if it's not going to cause you any negative side effects, which of course we don't know yet, it very well could, but if it doesn't, it in itself is not necessarily a bad thing. My concern, as it's always been, is that there always should remain an option to have the natural organic alternative, because if everybody is dependent on lab-grown meat a generation from now, and the house of cards comes crashing down, and there's no more, or there's very little domesticated livestock remaining, there's diminished diversity in flora species to grow crops, then the result is going to be catastrophic. Because if we remove or drastically minimize or even make nearly extinct the progenitors of all of this frankenfood, should the house cards fall, we're going to be screwed. Then we're not going to be able to bounce back, unfortunately. But I'm really interested to know what people who do practice different forms of animal husbandry, whether it's full-fledged homesteading or, growing chickens in your backyard in the suburbs, what your view is on this. Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think this is a bad thing? And what sort of ramifications do you think it's going to have for people who do want to get their food locally and grow their own food? Do you think that, and not to put words in your mouth or ask any leading questions, but do you think that this promotion of synthetic foods is going to lead to an increased regulation on what you yourself can grow and practices that you yourself can partake in, ones that you're free to partake in right now, but perhaps you'll have some rights and privileges revoked as a result of what they're calling Meat 2.0. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks for watching Canadian Prep Pro. The best way to support this YouTube channel is to support yourself by gearing up through CanadianPreparedness.com or BugoutRoll.ca. Premium quality gear at the best possible price using the incredibly secure and easy to use Shopify platform. We offer free shipping to the United States for orders over $200 USD and free shipping to Canada over $75. So support the channel by supporting yourself.